Well, release the Kraken.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Today is Thursday, October 21st, 2021, and we are here again with the partner of the show and a good friend of the show, Camden. Thank you so much, brother, for coming on, and let's jump right into it. There's quite a bit to cover today, especially since we didn't do a Kraken yesterday. We figured with the unraveling stories in real time, we would sort of round it up and do a nice, fresh Kraken today. So if you want to take it away, brother.
Yeah, right off the bat, interesting move by Trump. I guess we all knew it was coming, right? He has said in a press release he's going to launch his own social media platform, call it Truth Social. An interesting, name. It's not fake news, I guess, is what he's saying. Truth
This is going to
Social.
be
He's making his own media company through this. He's
Right.
getting into the media game, the big tech game himself. To say that he's opposing big tech while also joining is an interesting move. I immediately, think, where are his servers? What is he running off of? How smooth of a launch is this going to be? We'll remember Getter, whatever. That was horrible. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. The only other thing I can add to this is that, again, if Amazon doesn't allow him to use their servers, which I would hope he wouldn't bank on, him and his team wouldn't bank on, if Apple and Google remove his app from their respective app stores, again, you can always download the app from whatever website or link he gives. The question becomes as well too, how much, I guess you could say, enforcement will he put behind this compared to something like Getter, right? For example, he kind of seemed to teeter away as the launch proved to be a little bit inconsistent and very honestly very terrible and not fluid. Let's hope they learn from that. Now, again, then there's the whole aspect of will this app create echo chambers and things like that? Well, the rebuttal to that would be just very quickly, my last point would be, again, it is freedom of speech. Whether it creates echo chambers that are good or bad, who are big tech or the government to say?
Absolutely. The only thing to watch for on both ends, echo chambers, you get infighting, but also we shouldn't be opposing groups anyways. So echo chambers do give you confirmation bias. You think that everyone agrees with you, and that is not always the case.
Right.
Up next, Texas nurse guilty of killing patients by injecting them with air. I mean,
this is an interesting case. We looked at this before we started recording. As we see here, according to BBC, a Texas nurse has been found guilty of the murder of 4 patients who died after he injected them with air following heart surgeries. Now, if we scroll down a little bit more, this was William Davis, 37 years old, but the court heard that the 4 men killed by Mr. Davis had initially been recovering well from their operations, and that doctors had been at a loss as to how their conditions had deteriorated so rapidly. There's alleged footage of Mr. Davis injecting them with air. I don't know to what specificity this surveillance camera was able to pick up what was inside the vial. So again, if we see here, Davis's lawyer, Mr. Hayes, claimed during the trial that there was no evidence that the men had died from foul play and suggested that his client was being made a scapegoat for a hospital with serious procedural issues, end quote. Here's the thing, again, innocent till proven guilty. With that being said, though, if we take a look at this neutrally,
proven guilty, though, is that what we're saying here?
Right, that's what I'm saying. This is the thing. We have to look at this neutrally and see, okay, did his injections of, assuming there was air that injected into these patients, if that killed them, obviously that's blatant murder, right? But again, we have to also look at every angle of this. But if the evidence is overwhelming, I don't know what could be said at this point,
the only
right?
Contrarian point I can take, I guess, we will, lots of people in this community will take, for example, times that they will put, that people will, plant illegal things on like someone's computer or something to scapegoat them. You have to ask, is who he killed them? Sure. Who did he kill? Did other people gain from those people's deaths?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the only contrarian point I can take there.
Right, exactly. The next thing is that according to Telegram, disclosed TV, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis has called a special session to ban private sector employee vaccine mandates. I mean, You take a look, for example, at Texas, what the governor of Texas did. You take a look at, as reported by the Washington Post recently, and many other outlets too, in California, particularly the In-N-Out burgers in San Francisco. And we also see, for example, an anchor on ESPN, or a co-anchor, a female anchor. I forgot her name off the top of my head.
Yes.
Yeah,
the
Katie
blonde
something.
girl, yep.
She left saying, she quit her job saying, over the mandate, saying, I cannot put principle before a paycheck. Now, granted, keep in mind that, that when the CEO of In-N-Out Burger says, okay, we're not going to be the vaccine police for our customers, keep in mind the CEO of In-N-Out Burger is pretty well off financially, and this anchor former anchor at ESPN was making, I think, anywhere from $1 to $2 million a year. So they can afford to sit back and let things play out, whereas us, the working individuals, it's a little bit different in that regard. With that being said, though, again, we can argue very strongly that, okay, look, this is not a big deal. An ESPN anchor, a restaurant, chain, okay, big whoop. But you take a look at what's happening with Los Alamos National Labs. About 114, if I'm not mistaken, 80 of them wish to remain anonymous out of fear of reprimandment. But a handful of them have gone on record. We're talking nuclear physicists, nuclear engineers, scientists, workers with some of the highest levels of security clearances relative to what the masses on the surface know to be some of the highest clearances, and sensitive compartmentalized clearances in the country. These are off the record sources have claimed, and this is in the Washington Post, ironically enough. They've claimed that these are some of the most valuable people they've had, and it's going to be very difficult to replace them, especially in the short term.
Years kinds of things.
Yep.
I mean, how do you replace these people? And why are they so willing to forego their, at this point, actual careers?
Speaking of which, I just wanted to mention very quickly, this just came out minutes ago. The NIH had to publish a full-on letter saying that they had to make they had to apologize for a mistake they made about lying about the EcoHealth funding. So the question now becomes, NIH themselves have admitted that EcoHealth, they sent the grant via EcoHealth to the land in Wuhan, Institute of Virology. The question becomes, can you prove that Fauci was lying in Congress at the time, or can you prove he didn't know? We all really knew that he knew. Don't get me wrong, but if we're going to play it, down the middle, let's be consistent. That's the next thing that comes up, because again,
immediately, yes, right.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to merge that story into one, but
I mean, immediately after that, what do you do about lying to Congress? Do you hold him in contempt? Well, they have held Steve Bannon in contempt, lying on January 6th. U.S. Capitol voted unanimously Tuesday night to hold former President Trump aide Steve Bannon in criminal contempt for defying a subpoena to appear and produce records. They literally put this paragraph twice. CBS is really slacking here. We believe Mr. Bannon has information relevant to our probe, and we'll use our tools at our disposal to get that information. Is this, I immediately ask you, Dave, in relation to his Epstein documentary coming out?
It's possible. I mean, it's possible. Again, you take a look at, for example, I see this as one chess game between Bannon and this committee in Congress. And I say that because you take a look, for example, how at the recent, trailer for a documentary called The Monsters that Bannon was a co-producer on. At the time that Bannon did this, apparently it was to help Epstein rehabilitate his image. But now that Epstein is dead, Bannon is saying that, again, this is now a documentary to show how the depraved lived off of Epstein's wealth and dined off of his, depravity and his very mysterious sources of income. Now, as it pertains to Mr. Bannon and this committee here, I still see this as a chess game, because if we see that, his lawyer claims, Mr. Bannon's lawyer claimed that Bannon was following the legal advice of the former president's legal team. I wonder, look, Bannon, he's floated in a lot of very interesting circles, intelligence circles, CCP guys, billionaires who are against the CCP that have fled China because of that. He's in some very interesting circles. He has information. I'm not saying he's a good guy nor a bad guy. That's not for me to say, but I see a chess game, a strategic chess game, and I see it's all about perception. It's all about how it's viewed. So at this point, I mean, I'm just curious. We will follow up on this. I'm just curious to see what the play is going to be down the road.
I mean, the Liz Cheney on this committee, I mean, that is one of the worst people in Congress, just up there with the rest of them. It's strange that it only benefits them to go after Bannon this way. It only benefits them. It only gives them the headlines they want.
Right, exactly.
Next, more headlines they want. I'm sure they've got money in it. The Dow jumps to a new all-time high. The S&P 500 notches a 6-day win streak. It has, historically speaking, first year in a president's new term, it has gone up spring, dipped summer, skyrocketed fall, and dipped again at the end of the year. Personally, I believe, not financial advice, right? We don't claim to be.
Just to be clear, yeah.
I think the New York Stock Exchange is done. We know of Evergrande. We know of the possibility of a default from the Treasury December 3rd. I think that they are running up their money to cash the fuck out.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, this reminds me very similarly of the AAA or the double and AAA tranches from back in 2008. Again, I'm not an expert. Again, not financial advice. It's not for me to say if I think, in a very solidified manner what the direction of the market's going to go in. But when you have, Bitcoin being based off of nothing, okay. But again, the concept is that it's decentralized allegedly for now, but that's up for debate. But then we have the Fed coin now
could come out immediately with. And
right.
The U.S. government, it does hold a lot of Bitcoin. Do they go back their Fed coin off of another made-up currency of Bitcoin? That is not a gold standard. That is not that. I mean, that's markets they regulate doubly, and it's just a little concerning.
Yep. No, absolutely. Without a doubt. Absolutely. The next thing is that, according to the BBC, U.S. surgeons have tested a pig kidney transplant in a human. If we scroll down a little bit more, we'll see here that U.S. surgeons say they've successfully given a pig's kidney to a person in a transplant breakthrough they hope could ultimately solve donor organ shortages. The recipient was brain dead, meaning they were already on artificial life support with no prospect of recovering. The kidney came from a pig that had been genetically modified to stop the organ being recognized by the body as foreign and being rejected. The work is not yet peer-reviewed or published, but there are plans for this. Experts say it is the most advanced experiment in the field so far, end quote. There's going to be a lot of this that we'll be delving into in the members episode pertaining to this article and where it leads. The members will probably already have an idea of where we may or may not go with this, but ultimately, again, there's some connections on the back end I've already found, but at the same time, I'm going to be honest with you folks. I don't necessarily see what would be wrong with this per se, unless there's something I'm totally missing. Now, again, we talk about, the organs of animals and humans, but presuming there's no malicious intent and there's actual, ethics and morals behind the studying and the testing behind this. Personally, in my opinion, I know a lot of you like to hear, I don't have a problem with this. Again, if there's something that comes up that we didn't know at the time, my opinion may change, but I don't know. Camden, what do you think?
My only contrarian perspective is what does this do in long run? We sat there for 50 years saying cigarettes were great. We really don't know anything about these vapes. Admittedly, to all of you, I have one right here. We don't have the science yet. Where does this pig, it is pig DNA. It is not a human DNA. Where does this classify? I refer back to the 2013 Supreme Court case where they said, no, you can't patent human DNA, but I guess if you were to change human DNA, well, then you could own that. So where does this go? What does this lead to?
Well, exactly. That's exactly what it is. So we'll see what happens there. The next thing is that, according to NPR, researchers pinpoint when the Vikings came to Canada, and it was exactly 1,000 years ago. So if we scroll down a bit more, we'll see here. A new article in the journal Nature, and I quote, is the first to pinpoint a precise date, 1021, exactly 1,000 years ago, beating the arrival of Christopher Columbus by nearly 500 years. The research comes from the only confirmed Norse archaeological site in the Americas outside of Greenland, a settlement on the northernmost tip of Newfoundland called L'Anse aux Meadows. End quote. Again, look, we're finding more and more that what's been studied within elementary schools across North America and Europe is not what we thought it was.
Whitewashed lies of history. That is the
exactly.
only. Why do we? It has been known. Yes, Vikings probably showed up first. Leif Erikson, his son. But why do we celebrate these specific people? I would point to last week in a Kraken, we literally had of discoveries of notebooks where from Italy, Columbus's home, where they mentioned America. So we have people propped up nowadays in big tech and things specifically. It's kind of points to it's been going on all along,
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. I don't know at this point, a lot of know where I stand with that. So again, that we'll talk about that more in public and members episodes. The next thing is that, according to Yahoo News, Bolsonaro faces crimes against humanity and is being charged over COVID-19 mishandlings. If we scroll down a little bit more, we'll see over here that a Brazilian congressional panel has recommended, he hasn't been charged yet or so far, but that President Jair Bolsonaro be charged with crimes against humanity over his alleged bungling of the country's response to the COVID pandemic. It's about a 1,200-page report, formally presented as of yesterday, as of the time we're recording this. Again, the end quote, they say that his failed policies killed about 600,000 Brazilians. The thing is that my only rebuttal to this, to play both sides, is that we don't know the definite science behind the vaccine, the spread of that, the different variants.
Right.
So
I
I'm not
mean,
trying to defend him, but
no, absolutely not. Death is death. Tragedies are tragedies. It's more of the loss of life doesn't matter to these people that are throwing things around. The part that you point to, people like Japan that just had the
yeah,
Olympics, people like in Denmark or Germany, was there a quantifiable, not numbers, raw numbers, that's population. Brazil is much bigger than either of those countries, or their proportional percentages of loss of life? Would his policies have, if different, made any difference? And I
right.
don't know if that's what they're going to look into or not. I mean,
I
to be indicted
exactly.
on homicide and genocide, yikes.
No, exactly. That's the other thing too. So again, to make those claims, you better have the science to back it up. And again, I'm not trying to defend Bolsonaro, but if we're going to play devil's advocate before we move on very quickly, are they following the same guidance, given out by the WHO, the NIH, the CDC, and all that stuff? The same ones that, the same NIH that had to print a retraction today, or an apology or a correction, as
Literally
they say.
saying they lied.
Yeah, saying they lied about the eco health funding. So again, I'm not trying to go defend Bolsonaro, but let's weigh the options here, right? With that being said, granted, I have not read the 1,200-page report, so there could be two sides to this. It could swing both ways, but
Right. I mean, you've got he tried to push the drug on state health services. This is hydrochloroquine. Again, this is
hydroxychloroquine.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
horrible at that word. This is ivermectin. This what
right.
is there a measurable difference? If this is a pandemic, as we've been blistered at, then would anything have happened differently? Why? I mean, that's really what it gets down to.
Exactly.
Ethiopia launches new air raids on the embattled Tigray region. Air raids hit Tigray for the second time this week amid a sharp escalation in a nearly year-long conflict. This is straight up civil war that is going on, that hasn't been forgotten or ignored, but has just been kind of put over to the side over there. That a lot of people, I mean, we think, oh no, the financial market, oh no, protests in France, oh no, but this is war already going
Yeah,
on. This is not
I
China about to go to war with us, about to go to war with Taiwan. This is
yeah.
already happening.
This is, in my opinion, I think taking a step back at all the small, not small, but sorry, big picture, looking at the incidences occurring here in this civil war, I honestly think that this is going to be something that larger countries are going to use via their intelligence agencies as sort of a proxy nation to run leverage against other nations, blackmail, you name it. I could definitely see that happening, especially in a war-torn nation, especially one that's occurring at this very moment. I think this is ripe for those types of covert intelligence ops. Whether good or bad is not for us to say. All perspective, right? So that's the only thing I could say about this.
Are these the Air Force against the Tigray? Are they already proxy warring? Are they already
Right.
being put? Who's supplying
Yeah.
the planes? I doubt. Sorry, I'm not being presumptuous, but I doubt they had manufacturing facilities for whatever they used to bomb where they did.
Exactly.
Like you have to take a step back and look at the people that are actually providing and causing the destruction, not just the ones acting in it.
Exactly. The next thing is that, according to Al Jazeera, Kenya has lifted its long-standing COVID curfew as infections ease. President Uhuru Kenyatta announces immediate lifting of a nationwide dusk to dawn curfew in force since March 2020. Look, I got no problem with that. It's nice to see he's leading his country. And again, I'll be honest with you, we got to be consistent. If this was the other way around, and if the numbers showed that things were going up, I know that there would be far more questioning on that end of things. But in this particular way, the way that it's swinging, again, it seems to be something that very few developed nations are doing at this moment. So to see that, Kenya has done this, I have no problem with it. Again, if the people agree, then so be it.
I mean, this is a a country that is not 4.6% there. You see, I don't need to tell you what only 4.6% has gotten. Their infection rates have fallen 5% of tests each day proving positive. They are doing the same kind of things that I point to Denmark, Sweden, people that are not, your rates of jabs are different there, but there's a marketable, quantifiable eradication, beating of natural immunization of these things going on. And so I mean, like, I don't even like reporting on it anymore. Dave knows, but like, it's just.
Yeah, what we just to finish it off, he says here, it is now time to shift our focus, and I quote, from survival to coexisting with the disease. You know what? If that's how it's got to be viewed, in my opinion, please don't let me influence you, but so be it.
I mean, yeah, don't we coexist already with the flu? Don't we coexist already with chicken pox? I mean,
right? Exactly.
Next, 6 Pakistani security personnel killed in separate attacks. 3 separate attacks, including 2 raids on security posts, take place in the country's western provinces. This is, western provinces lined right up with Afghanistan. That is where their border and butt up is.
Yep.
Are we we're not pointing at it. The Telegram of the Taliban or their Twitter has not taken credit for this. Why they get to take credit on those platforms, I don't know. But
I just wanted to say very quickly, whether this is the Taliban, whether this is some intelligence agency that is, contracting out via a proxy, this type of action, whether this is India, because we know that they've had some issues with Pakistan lately. Either way, this is strategic, in my opinion. You see the way in which they've been taken out. You see that the soldiers have been taken out. I don't necessarily think these are, your average day-to-day rebels, if you will. But that's just my opinion.
Right. It's an opinion, but it also seems and appears to be that way. These are, I mean, they did three attacks, different places. Same. This is coordinated. This is. I mean, unidentified attackers carrying out raids against security checkposts. Coordinated, highly strategic, highly what I'm just saying, like this isn't rebels picked off war-torn streets and given AKs. These are communicatable coordination.
Exactly. The next thing is that, according to ArabFreePress.com, a man charged with UK lawmakers' murder felt affiliated to ISIL or ISIS. Ali Harbi Ali, who's accused of killing MP David Ames, has been charged with murder and preparing terrorism. Again, he considered himself affiliated to the Islamic State. James Cable told a hearing at Westminster a magistrate's court where Ali was making his first appearance, end quote. Again, this is the thing with the radicalism of any religion, whether it was the time of the Crusades, whether it's, what's going on now with Islam and with the Muslim world. Unfortunately, it's very unfortunate because it's hard to decipher from the everyday people that simply just want to get up, go to work, enjoy their life. And yeah, this is the problem. And I'm not trying to point it out as a racist gesture. We could argue that this was the same issue many, many years ago with the Crusades. And we can argue actually just as much that this is the issue when Westerners go overseas for covert intelligence operations. I mean, if someone like Camden and myself, we head over to China and they pick us up for just being as leverage to negotiate, as they've done recently with other Canadians and America. At this point, you got to consider all cultures, all religions, all of that. So
I mean, you have to. Fanaticism, radicalism, it happens in every single ideology. It doesn't have to be religion, right, at all. So you have, I mean, that is the smallest percentage of the population of said any given ideology.
Right.
So let's not hold a religion, a group of people, accountable for a single person's actions. Right. Basically, what I'm getting at. It's tough.
It's tough. The next thing is that Weidmann resigns after 10 years in the presidency of Bundesbank. Bundesbank President Jens Weidmann today asked Federal President Frank-Walter Steinmeier to remove him from office on December 31st, 2021.
He looks pretty
This is
happy.
interesting.
I'm just saying, he looks pretty
Yeah,
happy.
there's a lot of sales of officials from the Fed, from other reserves around the world, from other banks that are selling their shares, looking very happy as they resign. And it seems to all be happening in a very timely fashion. Look, it's possible that, again, he has, again, they can all put up their surface legitimate reasons. It's possible it's a bit of both. He knows from the inside there's a crash coming globally in the markets, and he just wants to, get out while he can and, live his life. Look, nothing wrong with that. But again, the question is he complicit? Did he help orchestrate? Did he stand by as he knew this was going to happen? It's very complex, not to defend him, but at the same time, we got to play both sides, right?
I point to the people in charge of the Boston and Texas or Fed that literally resigned themselves only weeks ago. These financial leaders seem to be ready to dip. Go back to the story of the S&P 500 we just talked about. It seems to be water already boiling over. It just doesn't seem like anyone of us, of the people that are cooking, have noticed the water's boiled.
Right, exactly.
Next, we've got Bosnia's political crisis, what you should know in 600 words. I don't know that 600 words can articulate what is happening there, but Bosnia is facing its worst political crisis since international armed conflict that when the country ended in 1995. Bosnia and Herzegovina is facing a political crisis that some fear could lead to armed conflict. It's much like the Tigrays, and this war is already bubbling up everywhere. This armed conflict is happening.
The tensions are all over. The question I'd like to know now is this deliberate? Are they being used as proxy nations? Is this being stirred up by some external source, or is this literally internal? And again, we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see what Putin thinks in this regard. And again, he has from my understanding, some interests in this nation.
July, they then High Representative banned genocide denial. So you once accused of genocide, you can't defend yourself. Establishing war crimes, glorification of war criminals, banning genocide denial means that they can't be told they did genocide, actually, is what I take. That is what I take the perspective of. Serb representatives responded by boycotting central institutions. I mean, the mobilization of people is kind of hopeful in this sense, but the loss of life on purpose with disregard, it is tragic.
Yeah, this is, again, I don't know what else I can say to this other than let's see how, legitimate the president or the prime minister is insisting his actions will be.
Dodik point blank says this isn't secession. There is no possibility for war. He told media October 14th that 7 European Union countries support Bosnia's dissolution, adding friends have promised to help the entity in case of Western military intervention. Pointing at the United States?
Yeah.
Pointing at NATO bare minimum.
Yeah, exactly. The next thing is that, according to MSN, the UN has set up a trust fund for Afghanistan amid cash shortages. The UN says it has set up a special trust fund to provide urgently needed cash directly to Afghans through a system that taps into donor funds frozen since the Taliban took over in August.
Donor funds? And
this is another
just getting to collect rent on it.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that too, but again, how many is this going to be like Ukraine with the NGOs and the Americans wanting to come in and George Soros? So again, I don't when I see the UN and I see these big fancy terms of these acronyms and all that stuff, again, it comes down, in my opinion, to the perspective pertaining to should we take a more nationalistic approach or more global approach in this regard. So
right, I mean, do we have a right to
I also I think it's too early to tell if there's any intelligence operations. I think if anything, they're coming to fruition as we speak.
Right. But I mean, we, at least I will say this: we love to meddle with these people and sow discord and chaos. I guess at least it's nice that we're willing to pretend to help if we're pretending to, you know what I mean? Like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you would hate to have seen, like an abandonment of fellow humans. So like, okay,
Right.
but you have to this virtue signaling. You have to make sure that it's not just that it's not
Exactly.
just moving money where they want money.
Exactly. Exactly.
The
The
next
next
thing,
thing.
no,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Sure, thanks. The next thing is that according to RT.com, states that do not play by European Union rules do not get benefits of Europe. France tells Poland amid row over law primacy. Okay, again, going back to this thing with Poland, I think it comes down to perspective, sort of that same concept, except on a much more, obviously less tense level of Afghanistan. This whole thing of the European Union and all that, it's tough to say, man. Again, I will tell you folks, my personal opinion does sway into this in terms of me being more of a, a national, I guess you could argue maybe a nationalist conservative in a certain, I don't know if that's how I would address it.
Yeah,
But
no, I mean that's very dangerous words to people nowadays.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's not altruistically, ideologically bad terms, technically, like on definition alone. You point to Brexit. It tried to leave the EU while also benefit from, and it didn't get to, and it also isn't doing great without it. I will say, I don't like the multinational game there of the EU, but it didn't pan out for British people.
No, exactly, exactly. So honestly, we'll see what happens. To me, this seems like the U.S. and NATO and Europe that are allied with them, wanting to keep their power more than anything else. But
Right.
that's the only thing I see. You want to take this one?
Yeah, regional powers back aid for Afghanistan, and Russia hosts the Taliban. 10 regional powers joined the Taliban in calling for a UN donor conference for Afghanistan after meeting in Russia. This goes, the UN has already said we're donating money. Now the Taliban is asking for separate money.
I mean, all this really does it. Sorry to say, and it's no disrespect to those that have served over the past 20 years, but this just goes to show again what was accomplished in the last 20 years. Look, the Taliban's in the UN now, and I'm not saying that's a good thing nor a bad thing. I'm just saying look at it neutrally.
I
They're
mean,
in
I
the
guess
UN.
objectively, we can't say they're in the UN.
I
Fact
mean,
check, but
fair,
they
fair.
are in meetings with. They are getting a seat at the
The
table.
the validation seems to be growing unless we're being misled
Yeah,
drastically, but that's the most I can offer in my
I
perspective
mean
of this. Sorry, let me say
but
officially, not that they're in the UN. I do not mean
yeah,
to
no, I
spread
know. I was
yeah,
people let the comment section roar. You had to make sure we said the right words, I guess. But the
right.
Taliban's resurgent here has stirred international fears of return to their hardline rule in the 1990s. So they hosted Osama bin Laden's Al Qaeda movement and carried out egregious human rights violations. They are and aren't still doing the same things, at least as we know. But of course, I turn to anyone in the comments. If you're in Afghanistan, tell us what's actually happening. I
Right.
don't want to hear it from the news. I don't want to hear it from MSNBC or CNN or Fox News, even. I want
Yeah.
to hear it from people. Sorry.
I know exactly what you're saying. Exactly. The next thing is that according to CBS, Russia has ordered new business shutdown amid record daily COVID-19 deaths. They're also saying, I believe, people ages 60 or 65 and over in that range need to stay home for at least 3 months. Again, apparently Putin is Putin, and I quote, back to proposal to mandate non-working days from October 30th till November 7th for 1 week. I could see that. I could see that happening. I could see why that would be the case. Now, apparently, Putin is also a little bit surprised at people's hesitancy to get the shot. But again, this is what happens, and I'm not trying to say this out of bad faith, but this is what happens when you have mass inoculations. I mean, what can I say? I don't.
A mass rush, a rushed version of it, because I mean, no fact check
Right.
again. It's not really, because they call it inoculation, but I don't think that's what this is.
Yeah,
But
exactly. That's the other
um,
thing too. So I
for
mean,
the first time, a share of responsibility for the country's lackluster vaccination campaign. So are they? I mean, you have to ask. Are they being punished for not complying, or are they being taken care of and made safer by saying don't go anywhere?
right.
Which way is this
Exactly.
actually affecting them?
Exactly. Exactly. The next thing is that, according to Bloomberg, Moscow has put unvaccinated seniors on lockdown to fight the COVID surge. Again, here we are, unvaccinated people 60 plus told to stay home for 4 months. So yeah, I mean, at this point, again, if the people are okay with it, that's the thing. Now, I imagine
If
there
they're
will be
okay with it, but
Yeah.
you're 60 plus, you're like, you can't have your family even check on you. When you stop checking, when you stop answering the phone, or maybe they don't even have a phone. It's not like
Yeah.
everyone's just got access to. It's like just
Well, see, here's the
abandoning.
thing that I want to know I would like to know the details pertaining to the lockdown of the 60 and over ages, and if the vast majority agree with this, or if they don't. Again, this is something that it's conflicting.
Yeah,
It's
right.
conflicting.
Exactly. Like, even if these people got sick in their homes, locked in, like, who would even know, and then be
Yeah.
able to take them to a hospital for the hospitals to even be overrun. I mean,
That's yeah.
yeah.
We don't know the conditions of to which they can be checked on and things like that. But anyways,
Oh, I'm glad they equated cases to stock increases. That's nice.
yeah, that's interesting. That's definitely, yeah, that's very interesting.
Go ahead.
The next thing is that, according to the Lancet, the health impacts of climate change are worsening in all world regions and exacerbating inequities. At COP26, decision makers must show leadership and deliver an equitable green recovery from COVID-19. This is from the Lancet report as of recently. Again, I don't, we have to be careful because of YouTube pertaining to things that we talk about on climate change. But again, ultimately, it's is it a fluke that in the last 3-4 months this climate narrative has ramped up so much?
I mean, no, because didn't we read the paper where they said that was next? I mean, just saying it exists. It's not like I'm lying.
Right.
Exactly to this, a little bit delving into it more detail. Document leaks reveals nations lobbying to change key climate report. Leak reveals Saudi Arabia, Japan, Australia are among the countries asking the UN to play down the need to move rapidly away from fossil fuels. Now, this did leak, right? So is it
Sorry, may I
more of
also
a
mention very quickly that a former ExxonMobil executive was apparently he was duped into an alleged job interview on a Zoom call, and he explained exactly how it works in America, at least with respects to bribery and lobbying and stuff. He said there's no real political courage in America. He said, he goes, notice how the Biden's infrastructure bill went from about 3 trillion and it'll go down to about 800 billion, and the reason for that is because what he was saying was that they essentially knock out all of the actual things that will actually help the climate because of the lobby. Right. Sorry to interrupt you though, Cam.
No, you did. I mean, like, my point is, again, just to go contrarian, this is leaked, right? How much control over the information do they have? This is a huge leak, it says. So, like, is this to get the people specifically riled up? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is this to make us actually decide to instead care about climate change? Is this to make us actually, get a little fired up about it because that's where they want the narrative agenda emotions to go?
Right, exactly. At this point, again, I mean, just look at the timing of it all, and again, not to imply or lean people in one way or the other, but again, please make your own decision as to what you think pertaining to all of this.
And just consider all angles. Don't let them make you emotional in any way,
or make you parrot
side.
anything. Yeah,
yes,
right.
Because their goal is to make you feel so that you act irrationally. That's what they love.
Exactly.
Big one, huge one. China tested a second hypersonic orbital nuke capable of breaching missile defenses. As panicked analysts say, it defies the laws of physics. Oh, really?
Yeah. I wonder where they got that from.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I actually applaud the balls on China to publicly do it.
Yeah. I mean, I got to be honest. I don't. Here's the thing. I'm still curious as to wonder if this is just the U.S. analysts and all that being for freaking the hell out and panicking because they don't know how they did it. I mean, at the same time, it could be that these American
they
analysts
don't know how they got it from the U.S. is what.
Yeah,
right?
or that. Yeah, exactly. That too. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know at this point. The thing is that these analysts, first off, I don't know what credibility they have, and if they do have some official, government credibility and reputation behind them, to what extent do they know about the compartmentalized special access programs?
and I quote, believed to have taken place August 13, involved a similar hypersonic glide vehicle. That's a new name.
Yeah.
Launched into space on board the Long March rocket back in July, which was first reported earlier this week. Beijing acknowledged one of the tests, claiming it launched a peaceful civilian spacecraft. I mean, this is just right on the teetering edge of what we've been talking about of disclosure all along. You know what I mean? Except it's a UFO with a nuke attachment. I don't know about that.
Yeah. So at
I don't
this
know how
point,
nice that is. I don't like that.
and we also have to be mindful of the narrative that the Western media will place on this too, right? Not just Western, but even the British media, the Australian media,
Right.
and all that stuff. So
I mean,
again,
to me, in my mind, they've got this peaceful civilian spacecraft. It probably did a wave peacefully by the US's whatever's up there, right? I mean, I'm just
right.
saying, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be hard to say at this moment, but again,
I think
I'm
the
not
article is
particularly.
also point blank, just trying to justify, trying to warn, trying to ramp up. I mean, they want to war with China. If you ask me, China
Yeah.
definitely wants to go to war. It's missing some money.
No, exactly.
So I
Exactly.
mean, it compares our military strengths here. China is not there yet, definitely doubles us almost in numbers. So like, I guess they can just throw numbers at us, but like, they're just trying to normalize a war here. If you ask me,
Right.
this is an article trying to scare and prepare.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
In
The
same
next thing.
continent. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. According to BBC, as reported by MSN as well, South Korea launched their first homegrown space rocket called Nuri in its bid to join the race for space exploration. They are the 7th country to successfully send a rocket into space. It also comes as an arms race heats up between North and South Korea, and both have recently test-fired new weapons, end quote. Again, I want to echo what Camden said with respects to this push for the space race, whether it's, again, surface level militaristic planning, or if things are just scattered all over the place in terms of the official, quote unquote narrative.
Right.
I'm curious to see what'll come to fruition from this, but that's all I have to say on this.
No, right. It's exactly right. Our next article on North Korea, I'll just jump to it actually. Confirmed
Sure.
submarine launch of new ballistic missiles. The White House urged North Korea to refrain from further provocations, saying it remained open to talks with the country over its weapon programs. Now, wait a minute. Why is it chill for China, for Russia, for the US? We just blew up shit in our own, off the coast of Florida. Why is it cool for us to do quote unquote provocations? Missile test, like, why can't North Korea, I guess, is my point. Just playing the other side. Not like I'm a fan of Kim Jong-un, but like, why can't they?
Right. Yeah, this to me seems like a very, I don't want to say chess game per se, but there's speculation, and then there's moves made, and there's moves not made. So I'm not sure as to what regards this direction to go in.
Good. I'm glad they actually made the point. I mean that I drew it from the article as well, but Pyongyang has so far rejected these overtures, accusing the United States and South Korea of talking diplomacy while ratcheting up tensions with their own military activities. Right?
Yeah.
Why do as I say, not as I do? Like, really? Are you my parents? Come on, US.
Yeah, well, this is the thing too, right? It all comes down to tit for tat, who said this, who didn't say that, and it's just it's like pro wrestling, in my opinion. Some things actually end up being legitimate.
Yeah, good analogy. Yeah.
And then other things are just totally pre-planned on the world stage, if you want to call it. You want to take the final one?
Yeah, no, testing the same weapons. Exactly this point. North Korea denounces the U.S. double standard after Washington condemns submarine missile test. Is basically talking about the same thing, but it gets more into the hypocrisy, I guess we will say, of the United States. The latest in a series of reckless provocations and unlawful activities, unacceptable, in violation of multiple Security Council resolutions. You just held their hand and made them sign whatever resolution. It is like the Korean Central News Agency said, and I love that they did. It is a clear double standard.
They're hoping that people don't look at. They're hoping that people, particularly in Europe and the West, I would imagine, don't look into these details. I figure.
I know, and it's just, I mean, Joe, this is Pyongyang lashed out at Trump's rival Joe Biden, which is a weird equation. I guess RT likes Trump for insulting the country and its leadership, calling the Democrat a rabid dog who must be beaten to death with a stick. You could probably beat Biden to death with a daisy. I don't know that you need a stick, but
I mean, yeah, at the end here, and I quote, speaking at a military exhibition earlier this month, Kim said it would be foolish to believe the U.S. is no longer hostile to Pyongyang. End quote. Again, this is all, again, I see it as pro wrestling again. The same concept there. You have a lot of it pre-planned on the world stage, and you have a lot of it with deliberate actions and
political theater, war theater. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Fight a war in the theater. It's what it's called. I mean, it's.
No, exactly. But
ahead,
other than that, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out to listen or watch today's joint Kraken episode, and we will catch all of you, regardless if it's members or public, very, very soon. Cheers, everybody.